The city seems to rise not from the earth, but from a dreamish shimmer of gold and marble suspended upon water, a miracle born between sea and sky. This is Venice, an empire built on the tides. To the traveler who first sees her domes and bell towers glinting over the lagoon, she appears eternal, like a vision conjured by the sea itself. Yet Venice is no illusion. She was built plank by plank, by hands that fled chaos and carved an empire from salt. Her story is one of beauty, yes, but also of will, cunning, and survival. This is the tale of a civilization that defied nature, turned the tides into walls, and ruled not by the sword, but by the sail. Our story begins in the twilight of the Roman world. As the empire crumbled in the 5th century, invaders swept across northern Italy. Those who survived fled east to the shallow lagoons at the edge of the Adriatic Sea. There, among mud flats and reeds, the refugees drove wooden stakes deep into the sand and built fragile settlements atop the rising tides. They built because there was nowhere else to go. And out of this exile, Venice was born a city without land, without walls, without a king. At first, it was just a scattering of poor fishing villages. But the sea has a way of shaping those who live beside it. The Venetians learned to read the tides as others read scripture, to trust the wind more than the soil. They became a people apart, something new, born between worlds. As the centuries turned, their wooden huts became stone churches, their canals became streets, and their isolation became their greatest strength. By the 9th century, Venice had crowned its first Doge leader chosen not by divine right, but by cunning consensus. A republic was born, ruled by merchants and councils, a strange democracy of wealth and intrigue that would baffle the monarchies of Europe for 1,000 years. But Venice was not content to merely exist. She was restless, ambitious, hungry for trade. Positioned perfectly between east and west, she found her destiny. Her ships carried silks, spices, and secrets. Her merchants learned the languages of Constantinople, Alexandria, and Damascus. They traded gold for pepper and glass for jewels, weaving Venice into the fabric of the known world. By the 11th century, the lagoon city had become a maritime superpower, her fleets gliding like silver arrows across the Mediterranean. But wealth breeds enemies, and power demands cunning. Venice was a master of both. Her strength lay not in armies, but in alliances and in diplomacy as an art form. Her ambassadors were spies, her merchants informants, her senate a theater of secrecy. And at the heart of it all stood St. Mark's Basilica, not just a church, but a proclamation of power. Its domes were borrowed from the east, its mosaics shimmering like molten gold, its treasures plundered from Constantinople. In 1204, when the Fourth Crusade veered from its holy course, it was Venice that guided the blades. Under the banner of the cross, Venetian ships ferried crusaders not to Jerusalem, but to Byzantium. Constantinople, the greatest city in Christendom, fell not to faith, but to commerce. The Republic seized its relics, its riches, and its famous marble horses trophies of both victory and betrayal. The spoils transformed Venice into a golden city, an empire of islands and ports stretching across the sea. But empire is a double-edged sword. With dominance came decadence. Genoa, her rival, challenged her supremacy. The two republics clashed in a series of brutal naval wars. For decades the sea ran red, but Venice, battered and burned, always rose again. Her resilience was legendary. When the Black Death swept through Europe in the 14th century, Venice was ravaged. Yet from the ashes, she reinvented herself, founding the world's first quarantine station and turning tragedy into innovation. The city of merchants also became a city of medicine, science, and law. As the Renaissance dawned, Venice stood at its heart-rich beyond measure, radiant with art and alive with ideas. The printing press arrived, and Venetian publishers filled the world with books. Painters like Bellini and Titian captured her. Soft light and fiery spirit. In the piazzas, music spilled like water, and in the theaters, masked laughter echoed through the night. The Venetian Republic was at its zenith. Yet beneath the beauty, shadows stirred. In the east, the Ottoman Empire rose like a storm, conquering lands that had long fed Venice's power. Then Portuguese and Spanish explorers found new sea routes to India, cutting the Venetians from their lifeblood. The Republic fought back, clinging to her colonies, but one by one, they fell. Still, Venice refused to yield. She called herself La Serenissima, the most serene republic, as if serenity could mask the gathering. Stormed by the 17th century, Venice was a paradox-rich but decaying. Glorious yet fragile, her power waned, but her culture soared. The canals glittered with masquerades, and behind the masks of carnival, Venetians danced as if time itself could be seduced. But time is no respecter of beauty. In 1797, Napoleon Bonaparte marched across the Alps. The Republic of Venice, proud, ancient, and undefeated for 1,000 years, fell without a single battle. The empire of the tides was no more. The conqueror mocked her as a corpse beautiful, yes, but dead. Yet even in death, Venice refused to vanish. Her palaces still rose from the waters, her bells still rang, and her people still spoke in the rolling rhythm of their dialect, carrying the memory of empire within it. Travelers who came seeking ruins found instead a living city, haunted but breathing, melancholy yet magnificent. And so she endured. Today, the tides that once carried her fleets now gnaw at her foundations. Each year, the water rises a little higher, licking the marble steps of St. Mark's. The Venetians have always been tenants of the sea, and they continue to build, restore, and resist. Perhaps that is the truest secret of Venice, that her greatness was never in conquering land, but in learning to live with impermanence. She taught the world that power can come from adaptation, from the art of balance. For centuries, she existed between contradictions east and west, water and earth, faith and prophet, and made of them a harmony. Stand on the waterfront at dawn, as mist curls across the lagoon, and you can still feel it, the pulse of a city that refused to drown. The whisper of sails, the creak of wooden hulls, the murmur of 1,000 forgotten tongues. Venice still speaks, not in conquest, but in the music of her bells and the shimmer of her canals. She is the voice of water and memory, the dream of an empire that chose the sea over the sword and won immortality in return. A miracle that should never have existed, yet somehow, impossibly, still does. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the heart of Venice, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from history.